In 8 weeks' time, Londoners will head to the polls to elect a new mayor to govern one of the world's most important global cities. According to the latest opinion poll data, the incumbent Labour candidate Sadiq Khan is on course for a relatively straightforward victory with a 22-point lead over his closest rival, Conservative Sean Bailey. There are also a number of independent candidates in contention, and one of them joins me in the studio now. Nims Obunge, pastor, charity worker, and the newest candidate for London Mayor. I'm going to ask about the incumbent Sadiq Khan. He is a Labour Mayor of London, and he's just launched his campaign this week. And he says it's a two-horse race between himself and the Conservative candidate, Sean Bailey. How does that make you feel? And tell us a little bit about yourself, your manifesto, your race.
Well, I suppose that's a bit ignorant of Sadiq, and I expect him to do that. He's been saying that for quite a while. He's been saying it on Twitter, and people have challenged him. I've chosen to ignore him. I recognize that Sadiq is a bit concerned. He's actually put a tweet out that says Labour may lose if Keir is not taken. Wow. So he's also aware, and I have been approached by members of the Labour Party to say, please don't run, because by running you might affect Sadiq's capacity to win. And others from the Conservatives have been in touch with me and said, don't run, you'd be impacting on Sean Bailey.
Wow.
And then others have been in touch with me and said, would you consider joining our party? So I've had series of conversations, and I've said, guys, calm down. I intend to win. I'm in it to win it. So don't worry about that. And here's the reality. Over the last 20 years, I have worked in London both as the chief executive of the Peace Alliance, addressing violent crime, looking at social inequality, community cohesion, trying to build relationships across London's diverse capital. And I realize that there is a vacuum. I've spoken with different prime ministers, from Tony Blair all the way, Gordon Brown, Cameron, Theresa May, and Boris, and even worked with Boris while he was mayor, and Ken Livingstone. And I've had conversations with Sadiq. I used to sit around tables with him on some issues, especially as impacted our community. Having done this for 20 years, I chaired the London Criminal Justice Board Advisory Group. I was overseeing criminal justice for London. I looked over gun and knife crime in the capital. I was in charge of working with the Met Police, looking at knife crime across London. So we've got to that moment where we realize there's a conversation you can continue to have with politicians, but there comes a moment where the people need to stand up and take ownership of their agenda and not continue to rely on politics that's somewhat restricted by by the number of people that voted. Now, what do I mean by that? Sadiq won by 1.3 million votes in the last election in a city of nearly 9 million people. Now, that tells me the majority of our city did not vote. Only about 2.5 million people voted. So there's political apathy and a sense that there is nothing that's really being done in London to address it. So we have a 4-point agenda clearly within our manifesto. And it's a growing conversation with Londoners. We're asking Londoners to be part of something we call the big conversation. And the big conversation is saying, hey, we want London to be safe. We want London to be affordable. We want London to be electric, that's dealing with the environment. We want London to be prosperous. How can we work together to make sure that happens? And we're asking Londoners to keep talking to us until we can make sure by the time we launch our final manifesto, it's the voice of Londoners.
Wow, that was an expansive answer, but I think we definitely have a taste of who you are. You've been around, and I must say, for a lot of us in London, we have seen you around. You are a familiar face, so you're definitely part of this race, and it's good that you're in there. What would you say, Nims, are the most important issues the city is currently facing at the moment? I know you mentioned a couple of them, knife crime. I know our viewers in Nigeria would be aware of knife crime because it affects so many young Nigerian boys. Also as well, inequality. Yeah. You go through the tube. Before you'd go into a certain part of London, that's where the rich housing is. Now it's everywhere. It's Absolutely. East, it's north, it's south, it's west. You come out of your tower block or your property and, there are £1 million houses. So those are a couple of them. What other issues are there?
I think that when we look at any city, the most important thing is the safety and security of that city in order to attract inward investment, in order for the house prices to go up, in order for people to feel that they don't have a poverty of aspiration and opportunity. And I think that young people are suffering from the lack of that. Now, without a doubt, there are other issues we will address, not just knife and violent crime.
Which is a huge issue.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I'm glad you raised that as a huge issue, because I have buried more young people in this city than I can number, who have been shot and stabbed. There was a young lady, Tanisha, from Tottenham. I buried her. She was 17 years old. Another family, the Burke-Monaville family, they've lost 3 sons who have been killed in London. 3 sons killed in our city. Not one of them was in a gang. And there's also a concern that you see a black person and you suddenly transpose them. Once they're shot or stabbed or involved in that framework, we suddenly assume that they're gang members. That's not always the reality. And I think that what we've got to do is deal with this issue around the absence of hope, start restoring that sense of hope and aspiration, bringing innovation hubs across all of our capital, building the aspiration of our young people, going into the communities that we used to that we actively represent. I used to be a journalist, and I interviewed George Foreman. I always say this everywhere I go. And I said to George, give me a message for young people in the United Kingdom. And he said, if they wake up in the morning without a dream, they should go back to sleep. So for me, running as a mayor, I want to restore the dreams of our communities, restore the dreams of those who have lost it, and stop allowing people think they have no right to vote. There's a silence. And if our communities got up and decided to start voting, but not just vote, but get involved in the politics of a city.
We could talk about this for hours, Nims, because I'm passionate about this this topic also. But I do want to touch on it before I move to the next question. Where does this loss of hope come from? Does it come from the home? Is it the parents? There's a term, I hate to use it, but latchkey children. A lot of us in our community our mothers are working nights. As soon as they're out of the house, you look out of the window, you run out. Where is this coming from?
You see, you've raised something that's a deep concern to me. And I want to refer to a conference I was at, and it sits within our manifesto. And that's the issue of, I want to touch it quite harshly but needfully, county lines, modern day slavery, and the impact this is having.
Wow.
A lot of young people want more than what they have. Now I say that because they get pulled into, they get lured into wanting the names, the brands.
Fast fashion.
Absolutely. And some of their families don't have the capacity to deliver that to them. And so you have folks who are going out on the streets and saying, why don't you come? Do you want some of this? Would you like the sneaker? Would you like that jacket? Would you like a little bit of extra money? And there was a young lad, for instance, on Snapchat. They get a quick message. You want to make 300 pounds quickly? A kid responded to that, and he was missing for 3 weeks. So he was pushed outside his community. His mom and father could not find him, but he was forced into a dark world. Now, when young people feel that there is an alternative, but they don't realize that alternative can destroy their lives, they begin to pursue it until they discover there's no way out.
Wow.
What we've got to do is go back to those families that feel vulnerable, empower those mothers and fathers that feel that they don't have the opportunity to work with the young people.
It's such a vital issue
It
concerning Londoners. Sadly, that's all we have time for today, but do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channel's Business Global. Goodbye.